All right, Phil, thanks so much. And lots of talk about Ford Motors' turnaround plan. Now the big question is, will it work? My next guest points to several key factors in determining whether a company is headed for a turnaround or a turn down. Joining me now are Umesh Ramakrishnan. He is the executive vice chairman at executive search firm Christian & Timber, and Mark Skousen, editor of Skousen Turnaround Trader. Gentlemen, nice to have you with us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. Tell me the key points in what might determine whether or not a turnaround works. Umesh?
Well, the first thing that the new CEO needs to do is understand that the speed at which he makes decisions is going to be absolutely the most important thing that he does in the next few weeks and months. And second, make sure that he surrounds himself with the right kind of executives that he can rely on. Coming from an industry that's outside the auto industry, he's going to need to rely on advice regarding industry issues, and therefore requires a very close group of people around him giving him advice, but at the same time driving decisions from the top down.
It's got to be tough, huh, Mark, when you've got an executive who obviously is quite seasoned when it comes to manufacturing and when it comes to turnaround, but not necessarily seasoned when it comes to the automotive industry.
No, he's not familiar with the automobile industry, but he has similar experience with Boeing, with dealing with labor. He's got to cut costs. You know what this reminds me of a lot of is when Lou Gerstner came into IBM in 1990 for a turnaround for IBM. This is an outsider coming in. Lou was very successful in this, and I think that our man from Boeing will do a very good job. I think this is a very positive move for Ford, and it's the first step. We look at three factors for turnarounds, and the first one is a management shakeup. We're getting that. Then we need new money injected in the system, and then the final key factor is fundamentals need to turn around, and fundamentals have not turned around, but that's the next step for Ford.
And do you think this is an individual who has the goods to actually complete that and make this execution?
He's a turnaround expert. When I was at Columbia Business School, everybody wanted to become a turnaround expert, and it's very difficult. But he's the type of person who's had experience with it. I mean, look at Boeing's success. It's all due to this man who's coming over and is a turnaround expert. So I'm very positive about it, and as a matter of fact, Ford is one of our recommended stocks, so we think it's on its way.
Umesh, when you look at the Ford story, and I don't know how much you focus specifically on Ford in this. I know you're focusing largely on turnarounds, but what do you think needs to be done?
Well, at the risk of repeating what I said last week on Closing Bell, Maria, what Ford needed to do were 4 Res: reduce, reinvent, recapitalize, and restructure. What they did not need was the 5th re, which was recycle tired executives from an old industry that is really in trouble nationwide. So I agree with your other guests. This is absolutely the right thing to have done. Brought in somebody with a fresh perspective who can look at old problems and come up with new solutions.
Let me mention one other thing that I think is very important. That is new products, because that's what Malala brought into Boeing, and that's what needs to be done here. You cannot just cut costs. That will not work for a true turnaround. You've got to have new products, and IBM did that. Look at Apple computers, they did that. Xerox has done that. All of the great turnarounds. I mean, look at Corning, how they reinvented themselves with the LCDs. This is the kind of thing that Ford needs to do. They cannot rely just on their old products. They've got to come up with new, better products to compete with Toyota, which is that's the classic case of a successful automobile company, and they've got to imitate Toyota.
Gentlemen, how do you know when it's a success? I mean, look, yesterday, Tom Freston at Viacom gets ousted. He was on the job 8 months. I mean, Umesh, how long should the public and should the investors give a new executive coming in trying to turn it around? Can you put a timeline on it?
Well, the first thing to keep in mind, I think, is that according to a Harvard Business Review about a few years ago, only 30% of turnarounds actually succeed. So, you need to make sure that the expectations are in line with that to begin with. In terms of a timeline, expect quick decisions over the next few weeks and months, but in terms of a true turnaround, you are not going to get that for at least a year or two.
Yeah, it's going to take several years. That was the case with IBM and with all the other cases. And they're not always successful. I mean, Hewlett-Packard had a lot of difficulty with their turnarounds. And look at Sun Microsystems. I mean, there's all kinds of examples of companies that have tried turnarounds and have not been successful. But Ford is making the right steps in that direction. But they've got to make product changes because otherwise they're not going to be a long-term success.
All right, we'll leave it there, gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you. We will see you soon. Mary Thompson, meanwhile, is on Wall